Today is giving bittersweet, and I will explain what I mean by that. It's bitter because we are already in chapter 11 of Hillbilly Elegy, my favorite story, a book I love, and I don't want to put it down. I don't want the series to end, but it has to, just based on the fact of how many amazing books I have for the next series. So I'm excited to get to the next series, but also very sad that this series is coming to an end very quickly because this story just means so much to me. I finally got my sister to buy the Audible version, and she texted me crying about it, and I'm like, yes, okay, it's so much better than the movie. If you have seen Hillbilly Elegy, the movie, it does the book no justice. It's a great movie. I mean, I recommend the movie, but the book is a million times better. This is when you just have to read or get the audio version. Okay, so in chapter 11, actually, before I get into chapter 11, let me just say I don't know if you've listened to the video I uploaded last Thursday, which was about 5 days ago. I'm still sick. I'm recovering, I'm getting better, but my voice still has that rasp in it. So I hope that you will be able to push through this video with my raspy voice because it's the only one I got. That's what you get today. Okay? Okay, so chapter 11, this is JD's first year at Ohio State. So he's about 100 miles away from Middleton. And this is going to be one of the first times that he is that close to home, just a few hours away, so that he can return anytime he wants since returning home from boot camp. Because he returned home from boot camp, stayed at his family's for a few weeks, and went right to college. So he's feeling good being close to home, but still far enough that he can get out and find his footing. And he's making friends at Ohio State. Not surprisingly, there are people that are similar to him from the same hillbilly type of background with parents and grandparents that have come from Kentucky, migrating to Ohio for work. Um, and then he kind of goes over the school schedule as if it's just no thing. He's like, listen, I just got back from boot camp and this schedule is all but difficult. So it's going to be a cakewalk. Not only is it going to be a cakewalk, but JD is going to go ahead and get 2 jobs and very soon after a third job because he just has so much discipline in him. It does end up biting him in the rear end, but we'll get to that. He also kind of considers the benefit of the cost of school with the GI Bill, which is a benefit that he got from going into the military. And it helps pay for his schooling, the majority of it. But for that excess cost, he gets a job working in a senator's office, which is his first kind of introduction into politics, where he's able to see the nitty gritty of politics. He said he did like this senator, and it was a really good experience for him. He ended up getting mono, right? And then living off of Dayquil and NyQuil as if it were magic elixirs, he says. But instead of getting over mono, he ended up working himself into a point where his mom had to drive to Ohio State and take him to the emergency room so he could get IV fluids because he was just doing terribly. And he admits that he went too hard. Also, after he gets out of the hospital, they return to Middleton where his mom can care for him from her home and kind of comes to these realizations that, his mom, not that she isn't with the greatest intentions and warm love, makes him uncomfortable, whether it's giving him care or just, it's just hard to receive it from her. in the way that she's delivering it because of everything that he's been through with her, everything that he has seen her do. I can relate to this 100%. It's like, it's so hard to let yourself be vulnerable, let your guard down to someone that has continuously hurt you. And that's not what JD says. This is my personal thought on the matter. Um, he also said that the home makes it even more uncomfortable. Having her husband there makes it very uncomfortable because it's just another man that he knows is only there for the short term and will be gone before he knows it. Um, and then different areas of the home can remind him of more traumatic experiences where his mom's been fighting with her boyfriend and he had to hide. So he's kind of in an awkward position with his mom caring for him, and also knowing that his mom is jealous of JD's relationship with his Aunt Wee, and how that isn't his mom, and she thinks that JD shouldn't be so close to Aunt Wee. But Aunt Wee has kind of just become the matriarch of the family, so it's only natural that he, when he needs a little leaning, can lean on her consistently. And, it's awkward for him and his mom, but I think he's just grateful to have that type of support system. So let's get into it. Okay, so this will start at second year. My second year of college started pretty much as my first year had, with a beautiful day and a lot of excitement. With the new job, hold on one second. Okay, I was just getting situated. Okay. My second year of college started pretty much as my first year had, with a beautiful day and a lot of excitement. With the new job, I was a bit busier, but I didn't mind the work. What I did mind was the gnawing feeling that at 24, I was a little too old to be a second year college student. But with 4 years in the Marine Corps behind me, more separated me from the other students than age. During an undergraduate seminar in foreign policy, I listened as a 19-year-old classmate with a hideous beard spouted off about the Iraq War. He explained that those fighting the war were typically less intelligent. Ooh, that's the wrong move, homeboy. Typically less intelligent than those like him who immediately went to college. It showed, he argued, in the wanton ways the soldiers butchered and disrespected Iraqi civilians. It was an objectively terrible opinion. My friends from the Marine Corps spanned the political spectrum and held nearly every conceivable opinion about the war. Many of my Marine Corps friends were staunch liberals who had no love for our commander in chief, then George W. Bush, and felt that we had sacrificed too much for too little gain. But none of them had ever uttered such an unreflective tripe. As the student prattled on, I thought about the never ending training on how to respect Iraqi culture. Never show anyone the bottom of your foot. Never address a woman in traditional Muslim garb without first speaking to a male relative. I thought about the security we provided for the Iraqi poll workers and how we studiously explained the importance of their mission without ever pushing our own political views on them. I thought about how listening to a young Iraqi who couldn't speak a word of English flawlessly rap every single word of 50 Cents in the club and laughing along with him and his friends. I thought about my friends who were covered in third-degree burns, lucky to have survived an IED attack in the Al Qam region of Iraq. And here was this dipshit in a spotty beard telling our class that we people for sport. The, the, okay, that's JD. What the? I felt an immediate drive to finish college as quickly as possible. I met with a guidance counselor and plotted my exit. I'd need to take classes during the summer and more than double the full time course load during some terms. It was, even by my heightened standards, an intense year. During a particularly terrible February, I sat down with my calendar and counted the number of days since I'd slept more than 4 hours in a day. The tally was 39. But I continued, and in August 2009, after 1 year and 11 months at Ohio State, I graduated with double majors summa cum laude. I tried to skip my graduation ceremony, but my family wouldn't let me. So I sat in an uncomfortable chair for 3 hours before I walked across the podium and received my college diploma. When Gordon Gee, the president of Ohio State University, paused for an unusually long photograph with the girl who stood in front of me in the line, I extended my hand to his assistant, non-verbally asking for the diploma. She handed it to me, and I stepped behind Dr. Gee and down off the podium. I may have been the only graduating student that day that did not shake his hand. On to the next one, I thought. I knew I'd go to law school later the next year. My August graduation precluded a 2009 start to law school, so I moved home to save money. Aunt Wee had taken Mama's place as the family matriarch. She put out the fires, hosted family gatherings, and kept us all from breaking apart. She had always provided me with a home base after Mama's death, but 10 months seemed like an imposition. I don't like the idea of disrupting her family's routine, but she insisted. JD, this is your home now. It's the only place for you. So that's super sweet. And, kind of after this, JD recognizes there is quite a cloud on his community and on, his, it's a cloud on his community of cynicism and how they kind of feel like where they are isn't due to the choices that they've made, but it's really due to the hand that they were dealt. And that if you were smart, it was like a no fail, like, of course you'll make it. It'd be impossible to not make it because you're just so smart, you make it out. For everyone else, it's just a bunch of fingers pointing outward as to why they're in the position that they're in. When in reality, there is clear economic explanations for their position. And it's also a community that's full of pride and, um, yeah, it's just that he kind of recognizes how his culture negatively impacts the people, even though they still have so many positives that he's proud of. So, to understand the significance of this cultural detachment, you must appreciate that my family's neighborhood and my community's identity, sorry, let me get this adjusted, derives from our love of country. I couldn't tell you a single thing about Breathitt County mayor's healthcare service or its famous residents. But I do know this: Bloody Berthoud allegedly earned its name because the county filled its World War I draft quota entirely with volunteers. That gives me goosebumps because that story is being passed down generation after generation, just full of nothing but chests high, backs out, just nothing but volunteers, baby. Okay. the only county in the entire United States to do so, nearly a century later, and that's the factoid about birth that I remember best. It's the truth that everyone around me ensured I knew. I once interviewed Mama for a class project about World War II. After 70 years filled with marriage, children, grandchildren, death, poverty, and triumph, the thing which Mama was unquestionably the proudest and most excited was that she and her family did their part during World War II. We spoke for minutes about everything else. We spoke for hours about war rations, Rosie and the river, her dad's wartime love letters to her mother from the Pacific, and the day we dropped the bomb, Mama always had two gods, Jesus Christ and the United States of America. I was no different, and neither was anyone else I knew. I'm the kind of patriot whom people on the corridor laugh at. I choke up when I hear Lee Grinwood's cheesy anthem, Proud to be an American. Same here, brother. When I was 16, I vowed that every time I met a veteran, I would go out of my way to shake his or her hand, even if I had to awkwardly interject to do so. To this day, I refuse to watch Saving Private Ryan around anyone but my closest friends because I can't stop from crying during the final scene. Second that, okay? If you don't cry during Saving Private Ryan, are you even human? I don't think so. Mama and Papa taught me that we live in the best and greatest country on earth. This fact gave meaning to my childhood. Whenever times were tough, when I felt overwhelmed by the drama and by the tumult of my youth, I knew that better days were ahead because I lived in a country that allowed me to make the good choices that others hadn't. Ooh, that's deep. When I think today about my life and how genuinely incredible it is, it's a gorgeous kind, brilliant life partner, the financial security that I dreamed about as a child, great friends, an exciting new experience. I feel overwhelming appreciation for these United States. I know it's corny, but it's the way I feel. If Mama's second God was the United States of America, then many people in my community were losing something akin to a religion. The tie that bound them to their neighbors, that inspired them in a way my patriotism had always inspired me, had seemingly vanished. The symptoms are all around us. Significant percentages of white conservative voters, about one third, believe that Barack Obama is a Muslim. In one poll, 32% of conservatives said that they believed Obama was foreign born, and another 19% said they were unsure, which means that a majority of white conservatives aren't certain that Obama is even an American. I regularly hear that from acquaintances or distant family members that Obama has ties to Islamic or is a traitor or was born in some far-flung corner of the world. Many of my new friends blame racism for this perception of the president. But the president feels like an alien to many Middletonians for reasons that have nothing to do with skin color. Recall that not a single one of my high school classmates attended an Ivy League school. Barack Obama attended two of them and excelled at both. He's brilliant, wealthy, and speaks like a constitutional law professor, which, of course, he is. Nothing about him bears any resemblance to the people I admired growing up. His accent, clean, perfect, neutral, is foreign. His credentials are so impressive that they're frightening. He made his life in Chicago, a dense metropolitan, a dense metropolis, and he conducts himself with confidence that comes from knowing that the modern American mediocrity was built for him. No, the modern American meritocracy was built for him. Of course, Obama overcame adversity in his own life. Adversity familiar to many of us, but that was long before any of us knew him. President Obama came on the scene right as many people in my community began to believe that the modern American meritocracy was not built for them. We know we're not doing well. We see it every day in the obituaries for teenage kids that conspicuously omit the cause of death, reading between the lines, overdose. In the deadbeats we watch our daughters waste their time with. Barack Obama strikes at the heart of our deepest insecurities. He's a good father, while many of us aren't. He wears suits to his job, while many of us wear overalls, if we're lucky enough to have a job at all. His wife tells us that we shouldn't be feeding our children certain foods, and we hate her for it, not because we think she's wrong, but because we know she's right. Many try to blame the anger and cynicism of working class whites on misinformation. Information. Admittedly, there is an industry of conspiracy mongers and fringe lunatics writing about all manner of idiocies, from Obama's alleged religious leanings to his ancestry. But every major news organization, even the oft mangled Fox News, has always told the truth about Obama's citizenship status and religious views. The people I know are well aware of what the major news organizations have to say about the issue. They simply don't believe them. Only 6% of the American voters believe that the media is very trustworthy. That is damning. That's a damning stat. Only 6%? Wow. To many of us, the free press, that bulwark of American democracy, is simply full of shit. Yep, I love the words. I love the description. Fits like a glove. With little trust in the press, there's no check on the internet conspiracy theories that rule the digital world. Barack Obama is a foreign alien actively trying to destroy our country. Everything the media tells us is a lie. Many in the white working class believe the worst about their society. Here's a small sample of emails or messages I received from friends or family. From white right-wing radio talker Alex Jones on the 10-year anniversary of 9/11, a documentary about the unanswered questions of the terrorist attacks suggests that the US government played a role in the massacre of its people. From an email chain, a story that Obamacare legislation requires microchip implantation in new healthcare patients. This story carries an extra bite because of the religious implications. Many believe that the end times mark of the beast, foretold in biblical prophecy, will be an electronic device. Multiple friends warned others about this threat via social media. Good looking out. From the popular website WorldNet Daily, an editorial suggesting that Newtown gun massacre was engineered by the Fed Gov to turn the public opinion on gun control measures. Okay, that's one I'm not touching. From multiple internet sources, suggestions that Obama will soon implement marital law in order to secure the power for the third term. This list goes on. It's impossible to know how many people believe one or many of these stories. But if a third of our country, if a third of our community questions the president's origin, despite all evidence to the contrary, it's a good bet that the other conspiracies have a broader currency than we'd like. This isn't some libertarian mistrust of government policy, which is healthy in any democracy. This is deep skepticism of the very institutions of our society, and it's becoming more and more mainstream. Again, if he wasn't out here predicting the future, 2016, I think, is when he wrote this, and in 2025, nearly 10 years later, could not be coming to the biggest climax of that point. We can't trust the evening news. We've all heard them parroting the same exact lines, sharp as a tack. We're all in this together. It's like nobody does that. Nobody genuinely just has the same taglines, the same days across the same news, and using them in identical stories. I mean, if this past few years wasn't just ripping the blind from your eyes, I don't know what you're doing. Okay, so we get it. We cannot trust. We're deeply skeptical. And psychologists have shown that group belief is a powerful motivator in performance. When groups perceive that there is interest to work hard and achieve things, member of that group, members of that group outperform similarly situated individuals. It's obvious why. If you believe that hard work pays off, then you work hard. If you think it's hard to get ahead, even when you try, then why try at all? Similarly, people do fail. Similarly, when people do fail, this mindset allows them to look outward. I once ran into an old acquaintance at a Middleton bar who told me that he had recently quit his job because he was sick of waking up early. I later saw him complaining on Facebook about the Obama economy and how it had affected his life. I don't doubt the Obama economy has affected many, but this man is assuredly not among them. His status in life is directly attributable to the choices he's made, and his life will improve only through better decisions. But for him to make better choices, he needs to live in an environment that forces him to ask tough questions about himself. There's a cultural movement in the white working class to blame problems on society or the government. And that movement gains adherents by the day. It's such a good distinction. Okay, it's like, okay, we want to hold the government accountable, but we don't want to give them our own, like our own will, our own freedom of choice and control that we have over our lives. There's a balance that, you can hold the government accountable while also working really hard, because it isn't easy to be successful. You do have to work hard. You should bust your behind to get where you want to go, but also take breaks, enjoy your family, and gosh, just find responsibility in every situation, because not only does it give you the control back, but it's almost impossible to be upset and mad if you can find just an inkling of responsibility in any situation that's causing you stress or pain or anything, agony. If your car gets broken into, whatever. Like, let's say your car gets broken into. Yeah, that's awful and so terrible. It sucks. They stole your purse, blah, blah, blah. But if you just think like, oh, my gut did tell me to park a little bit closer to the front, it's my fault. No, I'm not saying it's your fault that person broke into your car. But I'm just saying, if you can find it any percentage of responsibility where you had any choice in that event, that you can carry a little bit of the weight, it changes the way you feel about it altogether. Because if you played any hand in it, which in 98% of everything that happens to us, we play a hand in, we are responsible for, and we can't just point outward. So if we can just identify those small areas where we contributed to the situation that we're in, it's impossible to remain mad. So it's like a win-win. It's like how you forgive people. When you forgive, it's really for you because you in turn get to let go of this thing that's been weighing on you. So it's like, yeah, you forgive the person because you want to let it go, but it isn't for that person, it's more for you. And it's the same way with finding responsibility in every situation so that you don't have to be upset and mad and bitter and sour all day of your life. Okay? Okay, here's where the rhetoric of modern conservatism, and I say this as one of them, fails to meet the real challenges of their biggest constituents. Instead of encouraging engagement, conservatives increasingly foment the kind of detachment that has sapped the ambition of so many of my peers. I have watched some friends blossom into successful adults and others fall victim to the worst of Middleton's temptations: premature parenthood, drugs, incarceration. What separates the successful and the unsuccessful are the expectations that they had for their own lives. Yet, the message of the right is increasingly, it's not your fault that you're a loser, it's the government's fault. My dad, for example, has never disparaged hard work, but he mistrusts some of the most obvious paths to upward mobility. When he found out that I had decided to go to Yale Law School, he asked whether on my application I had pretended to be black or liberal. That's pretty funny. This is how low cultural expectations of working class white Americans have fallen. We should hardly be surprised that as attitudes like this one spread, the number of people willing to work for a better life diminishes. The Pew Economic Mobility Project studied how Americans evaluated their chances at economic betterment, and what they found was shocking. There is no group of Americans more pessimistic than working class whites. Well over half of Blacks, Latinos, and college educated whites expect that their children will fare better economically than they have. Among working class whites, only 44% share that expectation. Even more surprising, 42% of working class whites, by far the highest number in the survey, report that their lives are less economically successful than those of their parents. In 2010, that just wasn't my mindset. I was happy about where I was and overwhelmingly hopeful about the future for the first time in my life, and I felt like an outsider in Middleton. And what turned me into an alien was my optimism. That's such a good chapter because he is just as critical of the community, of being a reflection to what he can recognize in only the place that he's from. He's not going to Detroit, into this huge metropolitan city, and recognizing immediately, oh, these people are cynical because of this and that. No, he's like, listen, I know how they feel because I've heard it my entire life. I know what discourages them. I know how they think. And it's a problem. He isn't saying that this problem is far worse than any other. He's not saying it's not of their own doing in part, but he's just revealing the soft underbelly of his people and how they're struggling. And you see it now more than ever. People like Theo Vaughn speaking out about how it's like there isn't any kind of like white groups, or, if you just take out any other ethnic race group, like doing the same thing for whites is so controversial. It sounds like nails on a chalkboard. And it's like just because we've recognized the flaws of our past, it doesn't mean we still can't love our people.